For months before the 2026 World Cup kicked off, European football fans were openly dismissive about American stadiums. The conversations were confident. The verdicts were settled. NFL grounds, they said, were oversized, soulless boxes. Corporate. Cold. Built for a sport that involved stopping every 30 seconds and eating nachos between plays. Not real venues for real football. Not places that could generate the kind of atmosphere that European grounds had spent a century building into their walls. The mockery was not subtle. It was repeated across social media, across football podcasts, across supporter forums in England, Germany, Spain, and France. American stadiums were bigger, but bigger was not better. European fans knew what a real stadium felt like. They had Anfield. They had the Bernabeu. They had Wembley. They had a history that no retractable roof or luxury concourse could replicate. And then they walked through the door. And every single thing they thought they knew collapsed the moment they did. Subscribe before we go further. This channel tells the story the highlight reels miss. You need to be here for what comes next. The dismissal of American stadium culture by European football fans was not random. It was built on a real foundation. European football grounds have something that cannot be manufactured and cannot be designed into existence from scratch. They have time. They have the weight of decades of specific, lived experience accumulated in specific places by specific communities who built their identities around those buildings. The intimidating roar of a full Anfield. The specific architecture of grounds that were constructed around the pitch rather than around corporate hospitality areas. The closeness of the stands to the action, supporters almost overhanging the touchline, makes the best European football atmospheres genuinely unlike anything else in world sport. Against that standard, American stadiums looked like what they were. Enormous, expensive, multi-purpose entertainment venues built primarily for a sport with a completely different rhythm, a completely different relationship to space, and a completely different set of priorities when it came to what the person in the seat was supposed to experience. European fans arriving for the World Cup were not expecting to be impressed. They were expecting to tolerate it. The moment that captured what actually happened came early in the tournament. A European fan attending a World Cup match at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas posted a video from inside the ground that spread across football social media within hours. He described walking toward the stadium and thinking it looked from the outside like any ordinary ground. And then he walked through the doors, and everything changed. Instead of narrow concourses and a single food kiosk with one option and a long queue, he described stepping into something that felt more like a luxury shopping mall. Air conditioning that hit immediately, enormous open spaces, restaurants, retail, premium facilities stretched out in every direction. He compared it to walking through an airport or a major train station rather than a football venue. He said he had visited stadiums across Europe and around the world. Nothing had prepared him for this. His conclusion was direct. As a European, he genuinely did not expect this. The World Cup was introducing him to a completely different understanding of what a stadium could be. He was not alone. Across the 11 American venues hosting matches, the same reaction surfaced in city after city. Visitors who arrived expecting to tolerate a big NFL box walked out hours later reconsidering everything they thought they knew about the relationship between sport and infrastructure. An English fan at the same venue put it in 4 words that have since been shared across the internet more times than anyone counted. "We owe America an apology." He wrote that AT&T Stadium was simply better than anything Britain had, that it was the best venue he had ever attended in his life, that he meant every word and was not trolling. He was not trolling, and thousands of European fans who read it and had made the same trip said so. The scale was the first thing. The sheer, unapologetic physical scale of these buildings. AT&T Stadium seats 80,000 people under a retractable roof. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles cost over $5 billion to build and ranks among the most technically sophisticated venues ever constructed on Earth. MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, hosting the World Cup final, seats 82,000. Even the more modest venues on the American list dwarf the average Premier League or Bundesliga ground. But size alone would not explain the reaction. What genuinely stopped European visitors was something more specific. It was the totality of the experience these stadiums were designed to deliver from the moment you walked through the entrance to the moment you left. Sweeping roofs. Giant screens hanging over the action are so large that the replay is more visible than the play itself from some angles. Architectural statements that read as futuristic landmarks rather than football grounds. Concourses wide enough to move freely at full capacity. Food options that range from standard fast food to sit-down restaurants serving full meals inside the building. Climate control that made the Texas summer irrelevant. Premium hospitality areas that compared to anything in European sport at any level. The washrooms were clean. That detail kept appearing in visitor accounts in a way that reveals something about the baseline expectation European fans had brought with them. A football ground with reliably clean bathrooms was noteworthy enough to mention. European football has the atmosphere. What it increasingly does not have is the infrastructure to match what America just put on display. And the gap between those two things, visible in sharp relief for the first time to millions of fans who had never encountered American sports infrastructure before, turned out to be considerably wider than anyone had acknowledged. Here is where the story moves from reaction to consequence. And this is the part that tells you how serious the gap actually is. European football clubs and stadium operators did not watch what happened this summer and decide to move on. They are paying very close attention. And some of them were already moving before the first match was played. Manchester City's ongoing Etihad Stadium renovation is projected to cost $750 million. It will add 7,000 seats and take the ground's capacity beyond 61,000. The development includes a 400-room hotel, a covered fan park for 3,000 people, and a premium matchday offer built specifically to compete with the best venues in global sport. The renovation explicitly cited American venues, including SoFi Stadium, as the model for its new hospitality features and entertainment areas. A Premier League football club in England is spending $750 million to make its stadium more like an American one. That sentence is worth reading twice. Arsenal have confirmed renovation plans for the Emirates Stadium. Real clubs across Spain are committing tens of millions to bring their grounds to UEFA standards that increasingly reference the American fan experience as the benchmark worth reaching. The influence is also moving in the other direction in a way that is rarely discussed. American stadium designers are now incorporating European football's acoustic principles into NFL venues. The tradition of continuous singing in European football grounds is driving new acoustic engineering into American arena design, creating fan sections angled to produce walls of sound, with standing rail seating inspired directly by the terraces of European clubs. Two cultures that had spent years being dismissive of each other's approach to the stadium experience have found themselves, in the summer of 2026, quietly borrowing from each other. And the borrowing is not equal. Europe is copying America faster than America is copying Europe. European fans came to America knowing exactly what a great stadium felt like. They had spent years inside some of the most historic sporting venues on earth, buildings that carry the weight of generations, grounds where the atmosphere is a physical thing you feel in your chest from the moment the teams walk out. And then they walked into AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and MetLife in New Jersey, and they picked up their phones and told the world that they owed America an apology. Not for football, for what they said about the buildings before they saw them. The mockery was confident. The verdict came quickly. The correction took about 45 minutes from the moment they walked through the door. And now European football clubs are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to close a gap that European fans spent years insisting did not exist. America did not build its stadiums to prove something to European football. It built them because this is how America builds things when it decides to build something. All the way, past the point where most countries would have stopped. Past comfort is extraordinary. And the world walked in, and could not find anything to argue with. Share this with someone who still thinks European stadiums have nothing to learn. Subscribe because this channel keeps finding the story underneath the story. And right now that story is written in steel and glass across 11 American cities.